Hello everyone, this is Mohammad Shahriar Kubir, and in this video I'd like to demonstrate my project called Migratify. This is a CLI tool that can be used to integrate into a project and used for programmatically handling MySQL database migrations. So let's start with the walkthrough. At first, let's create a database according to this diagram. We have these two tables, student and a teacher, and each student has one supervisor who is a teacher, and both table has a primary key and several other attributes. So let's start with creating the database using Migratify. I'm going to use this MySQL database uh, extension for VS Code, and this allows me to see the existing database along with its schema and the data stored into it. So now let's just create the database. In order to do that, at first we'll have to initialize a Node.js project. But before going any further, I'd like to tell you guys that this project is in fact uh, framework agnostic. That means it does not interact with the existing code base of the containing project. So we can imagine that we have an Express.js application and we want to create the database of this project. So we go ahead and type the command npm init-y. This will create the package.json file and will install Migratify both locally and globally. So the command is migratify, sorry, npm I or install Migratify. We hit enter and it might take a few seconds to install. The package is quite lightweight, so it will not take much time. Great. We have this package installed and now we can go ahead and create the database. So the command to create the database is migratify create-db, and it will ask us for the database name. Our database name is school. The port is 3306, so we leave it blank. Database host is localhost, and the password is, for my case, it is abcd1234, and the user is root, and voila. So this is created a folder called migration, and inside it there is a file called config.json that contains the database connection credentials. Now if you open the MySQL database browser and refresh it, we have this database called school has been created successfully, but it has no tables yet. So let's just create the table at first. So at first we will create the table for the teacher, and in order to do that we will have to create a migration file which will create the table when executed. So the command to create a migration file is migratify create-table, then the name of the table, which is teacher. Great. So it has created a migration file which is timestamp, then create table underscore teacher.js, and if you open this index.txt file, this has registered that file name inside it. So what index.txt does is that it lists down all the migration file names, because when we run the migrations, then these files will be executed. We'll know further details about it. So we open this create table teacher.js and we have to edit it to uh, uh, insert the attributes of this table, and we have to install Migratify both locally and globally. We have showed how to install it locally. We'll have to install it globally as well, and the command was migratify sorry npm install -g migratify. This is the command. I have already installed it in my machine, so if you haven't installed it yet, go ahead and do it. Great. So we have to create the attributes for the teachers table, and at first let's just create the ID of the teacher. So the command is new table dot set ID, and the name of the ID is just ID. Another attribute is the name. So new table dot add column, and the name of the column is name, and the type is Farkar 50. Great. So we can go ahead and commit these changes to the database, or we can create the migration file of the student and do everything all at once. It's completely up to us. I'll go ahead and create the student migration file for the students. So instead of teacher, it will be student, and we open it and we populate this file with the schema definition. So first the student ID, so new table dot set ID, and the name is ID, and we will add another attribute which is new table dot add column, which is supervisor ID, and the type is integer. Now you can notice that I have deliberately did not add the name attribute because we will add it later. So for now, let's just assume that I forgot it. So we'll have to add the foreign key, which is new table dot add foreign key, and this foreign key refers to the ID of the teachers table, right? So column name is the supervisor ID, and this refers to the table which is teacher, and the attribute it refers to, which is the ID. Great. Now we can go ahead and commit these changes to the database. We can do that with the command migratify migrate. We hit enter. A lot of things have happened here. We have this folder called metadata, we have this another file called log.txt, but at first let's just go to the database and see the changes. We can see that we have successfully created these two tables, student and teacher, and both of these tables have these attributes the way we have defined. Now what happened here is that at first let's just look at the logs.txt file. Logs.txt file keeps track of the migration files which have existed already, which have been executed, so that when we again run the migrations, these files will be ignored because these files have already made the changes to the database. Great. We will discuss about the metadata folder a bit later, but now what we want to do is that, remember, I forgot to add the name attribute in the students table, so let's just do that. And the command is migratify. Instead of create table, it is update hyphen table, and the name of the table is student, so we leave it as is and we hit enter. Great, we have this migration file created, so we just add the name attribute, which is new table dot add column. Then everything is just the same, and the name of the attribute is name, and the type of this attribute is varchar, let's just say 50. Great, we can commit these changes to migrate, and we can confirm that this change has been done if we refresh it, and we can see that the name attribute has been added to the student table. Nice. Now let's just assume that we want to add an attribute called salary in the teachers table. So what we could do is that we would create a update table migration file for the teacher, and then add that attribute, right? So let's just say instead of adding that attribute to the teacher table, we mistakenly added to the student table. So we just did that, and this new file has been created, and let's just add the salary attribute to the student mistakenly. So new table dot add column, and which the attribute is salary. Students don't have salary, I mean, in most of the cases, or at least I don't. Just kidding. Okay, now we migrate it again, and we can confirm that this attribute has been added to the student as well. Great, but we wanted this attribute to be added in the teachers table, so we don't want this attribute in the student table, right? So what we could do is that we could create another update tables migration file for the student, and then we would drop that column specifically, and then we would add that column to the teachers table. But that's quite tedious, and it's actually quite pointless to just create another file to undo the change we have created previously. So in order to undo the changes, we have another command, which is migratify rollback. What it does is that it basically reverts the action that has been done by the last created migration file, in this case, which is this one, update table student.js. So this is where this metadata folder comes into the picture. This folder contains the JSON files, and these names are similar to the corresponding migration files. If we open the lastly created JSON file and we reformat this file, and we can see that at the last update we added the column salary to the student table. So now that we know that we have a column named salary in the student table, we can easily revert this action using this command migratify rollback. We hit enter, and these two files has been cleared, so these are deleted. And we can, if you open the index.txt file, you can see that that file name has been removed from the index.txt file and the logs.txt file as well. And now if we open the database explorer and refresh it, and we can see that the salary attribute is gone from here as well. Awesome. So we have seen how to create the database and how to create and update the tables and perform rollbacks. Now what if we have a database existing in our MySQL server and we want to create the migration files from it? So what should we do? So to do that, I will just completely delete this migration folder. Now I'm just left with the database in our database server. We can refresh it and you can see that. Now what I'm going to do is I have a command that will generate the migration files from a specific database. So the command is migratify load-db, and the name of the database is school again. The port is 3206, database host is localhost, password is abcd1234. You would want to provide your password, and user is root. Great. So if we open the file explorer, and again we have this folder called migrations has been created. We have this table teacher and student, and we also have all the necessary files and folders created. And if you remember that the student table is dependent on the teacher table, so the teacher table is to be created before the student has been created. So for that, this order has been maintained in the logs.txt file. As you can see that the create table teacher is mentioned before the create table student. So that this ensures that the teacher table will be created before the student table is created. So yeah, these are the few main features, and we can do some other tasks such as dumping the schema of the database in a single SQL file. And the command for dumping this schema is migratify dump -schema. And this SQL file will be created if we execute that command, and this contains the schema definition of these two tables. We can also dump the data as well if we want to, but before that we have to populate this, let's just say this teacher table, and we can do that. Let's just add a teacher, and let's just name it Shahriar. Well, that's my name. And we just add another teacher, his name is Kabir. That's surprisingly, that's my name as well. Okay, now we want to dump the data along with the schema, and I could delete the file, but it will be overwritten. Let's just delete it. Good. And instead of dump schema, the command is dump data, and this school.sql file has been created. And if we scroll down, we can see the command SQL commands to insert the data into the teachers table. So that's it. These are the features of my project, and if you have been watching this video this far, then thank you so much. If you can also see the list of the commands this tool can provide, and the command is migratify help. This will list down all the commands that you can execute to different actions. Okay. So that's it, guys. These are the features of my project, and if you love this project, then I would really appreciate if you could give a star in the GitHub repository. I'll attach this GitHub repository in the description of this video, and I also add the npm.js link so that you can go ahead and read the documentation, and I hope this project will help you in your projects as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.